Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Palestinian leaders are coming under fire for silencing and abusing the media. Israel takes home a major music award, and a new historical discovery may reveal the city behind the biblical story of David and Goliath. I'm Natasha Kirchak here with the latest news in Israel. There's been an uproar in local media today after some controversial reports surfaced regarding the Israeli defense minister. Avigdor Lieberman is allegedly saying that the bodies of two IDF soldiers being held by Hamas will remain in the Gaza Strip because he's refusing to negotiate with the terrorist group. Lieberman's office is denying the comments, although officials did repeat the defense chief's long-standing opposition to holding talks with Hamas, as well as any kind of prisoner exchange deals. Israel's Channel 10 News reported that Lieberman told a closed-door gathering in the south yesterday that because of this opposition, the bodies of Staff Sergeant Oron Shaul and Lieutenant Hadar Goldin will not be returned to Israel from Gaza, where they've been held as bargaining chips since being killed in Hamas's 2014 conflict with Israel. The defense minister was quoted as also reminding those present that he was against a 2011 deal that saw the return of IDF soldier Gilad Shalit after 5 years of Hamas captivity, in exchange for the release of 1,027 Palestinian prisoners. The Goldin family responded with a scathing statement that anyone who refuses to work toward returning soldiers from the battlefield lacks the moral authority to be the nation's defense minister. Meanwhile, Lieberman is also taking aim at the media. In other comments during a press conference on Monday, he accused Israeli journalists of preventing IDF soldiers from carrying out their missions because of harsh and unfair coverage of their actions by the press. He made the remarks against a backdrop of two ongoing cases in which soldiers are alleged to have killed Palestinians unlawfully. The defense minister stressed that soldiers are not afforded the luxury of stopping to seek legal advice during operations. A leading international human rights group is accusing Palestinian leadership of silencing dissent by cracking down on free speech and abusing local journalists and activists. Human Rights Watch has just released a report claiming both the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are, quote, arresting, abusing, and criminally charging journalists and activists who express peaceful criticism of the authorities. Hamas runs the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian Authority leads the West Bank, and both authorities are under fire for their treatment of the media. Human Rights Watch says Palestinian forces have arrested activists and musicians who ridiculed Palestinian security forces and accuse the government of corruption in any way. The rights group is based in New York and says Palestinian security officers have beaten journalists, deprived them of sleep and proper food, and even hosed them with cold and then hot water. Repressing free speech and torturing those who speak out against authorities violates the legal commitments that the Palestinian Authority assumed in 2014, when it ratified the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. A spokesman for the Palestinian government is claiming that any cases of abuse were isolated and not government policy. And Hamas representatives claim that journalists have not been arrested for their opinions, but instead for defamation or incitement to violence. Social media has been on fire this week following attempts to ban the burkini from being worn by Muslim women at beaches in France. Yet it may surprise you to know that Jewish Israeli women are at the forefront of defending the practice. After French authorities tried to stop Muslims from wearing the full-cover Islamic bathing suit at 30 coastal towns this past week, Facebook was flooded with contrasting images between France with Israel, where the mixed population happily enjoys the seaside in all forms of dress. Muslim women are seen splashing in the water alongside secular Jewish girls and Christian tourists in bikinis, as well as observant Jewish women in more covered outfits. Both Israeli Arabs and Jews say full-body swimwear isn't just for religious women and that government shouldn't get involved. An Arab feminist doctoral fellow at Haifa University acknowledged she doesn't like the burkini because of the restrictions imposed upon women, but said women's human rights are violated by being told what to wear. Manal Shalabi shares the beliefs of many who say the outfit has more to do with comfort than religion. That view is seconded by Batya Medad, who is a religious Jewish blogger living in Samaria. She says you don't have to be a Muslim to wear the burkini, and that she herself covers up not because she's an overmodest repressed nutcase, but also because she's at high risk for skin cancer. The Jewish owner of a swimwear company in Jerusalem called Marseille Modest told the Times of Israel that the right to dress modestly is a woman's choice, and of all places here in Israel, that's one thing we can all agree on. It seems like every few weeks there's a new peace initiative created to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, whether it's coming from France, Egypt, or Russia. The main question is, are both Palestinians and Israelis really ready for peace? ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with Jerusalem Post editor Ilan Evayatan to get an answer to this very question.
Palestinians may be running, but the Netanyahu government isn't chasing after them to bring them to the table. Running away from statehood. That's the name of a recent column of yours. Why are the Palestinians running away from statehood?
I think the Palestinians don't really aspire to statehood at the moment. What they would rather do is achieve gains without reaching a final status agreement. I don't think any Palestinian government at the moment could possibly give up ground on the refugees, could agree to the kind of lines that Israel would be able to agree to.
There have been some very generous, from Israel's point of view, offers that were on the table during the time when Ehud Barak was prime minister, during the time when Ehud Olmert was prime minister. In each case, the Palestinians ended up backing off from what was the finish line right in front of them. Negotiate, but don't reach an agreement?
That appears to be the Palestinian tactic at the moment, is to try and impose withdrawals on Israel, to try and impose achievements via the international arena, and not to reach a final status agreement.
And if you were to sum up the reason for that, is it because they can't sell their own people on an idea that is less than the ideological objective? I mean, Israel settled for the partition plan in 1948. We figured a small Jewish state is better than no Jewish state. We needed that refuge. Don't the Palestinians need a state badly enough to accept something that's less than the maximum?
I guess that depends on which narrative you believe. I mean, if you believe the narrative of some experts, they will tell you that the Palestinians quite simply don't accept Israel's presence and it's a winner-take-all game.
Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you look at our side, he has expressed support for a two-state solution, but he has certainly not gone after it with the same vigor that Olmert and Barak did before him. Is Netanyahu sincere in his interest of wanting to get to the table and reach an agreement if it were possible?
I think it's very difficult to say whether he's sincere or not, but I mean, he had the opportunity recently to bring Isaac Herzog into the coalition and instead opted to bring in Avigdor Lieberman as his defense minister.
That could have helped him in the peace process?
I think that could have perhaps helped him in the peace process, or not, depending on whether the Palestinians really do want to reach that finish line. But it certainly could have helped him in the international arena to have in his coalition a factor that is seen as genuinely desiring peace and pushing for peace.
We have a French initiative on the table. Just recently we've heard about an initiative that comes via Cairo with an invitation for Israel and the Palestinians to meet in Moscow. At the same time, we have a lame duck American presidency, pretty much, because Obama is reaching the end of his term. We don't know yet who's going to be the next president. Is this a time that you could see any sort of serious peace talks emerge?
I cannot at the moment see anything happening, but one never knows. I think Israel would like something had to happen via the Egyptian channel, and it wouldn't like to see something happen via the French channel, where it's going to come under a lot of pressure.
Why do we favor an Egyptian initiative?
We've been trying to warm our relations with moderate Sunni Arab countries that have interests that are other than for whom the Palestinian issue is not top of the agenda. I don't think they believe that solving the Palestinian issue is what will solve all the problems of the Middle East. And I think there we feel we have more to gain.
Ilan Aviatar, editor of the Jerusalem Report, thank you so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you, Steve.
The entertainment world is mourning the loss of the legendary Jewish star Gene Wilder, who just passed away at the age of 83 at his home in Connecticut. The beloved American comic actor, screenwriter, film director, and author died from complications due to Alzheimer's disease. His nephew says news of Wilder's illness wasn't made public because he didn't want to disappoint fans and simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world. And that's pretty much how his career began as well. As a child, a doctor once told Wilder to try to make his mother laugh when she was sick. Wilder's birth name was Jerome Silberman, and he was raised in a Jewish home in Wisconsin. His father and paternal grandparents were Russian Jewish immigrants, and his mother was of Polish Jewish descent. He later withdrew from a military school after he reported that he was sexually assaulted and bullied for being the only Jewish student. After a start in local theater, he adopted the professional name of Gene Wilder because of his love of writer Thornton Wilder and Thomas Wolfe's character Eugene Gant. After his wife, fellow Jewish comic Gilda Radner, died from ovarian cancer, the widower devoted much of his life to promoting research for the disease. He remarried in 1991 and is survived by his second wife, Karen. Many of Gene Wilder's most memorable roles were in Mel Brooks' classic comedies, Blazing Saddles and The Producers, for which he received an Oscar nomination. He's also known for Young Frankenstein, or as he called it with a Yiddish accent, Frankenstein. Gene, you will be deeply missed. One of the deadliest and most common diseases in the world is lung cancer, and over 1 million people die a year from the devastating illness. Now, an Israeli company has developed some unique ways to deal with the deadly disease, including a groundbreaking way to diagnose it. Joining us now in the studio is Bioview CEO and President Alan Schwebel. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So, to begin, tell us more about Bioview's unique technologies.
Okay, let me start from the beginning. Bioview was started up about 16 years ago by several Israeli entrepreneurs. I joined the company 14 years ago. And what we developed really is a scanning and imaging technology in order to capture cells, biological cells, from whether it's tissue samples, blood samples, urine samples, any sample in the body. And those cells are usually going to be marked with specific markers. These markers give us information about genetic abnormalities, other types of abnormalities, which of course will help in being able to diagnose cancer, treat cancer, and sometimes even screen for cancer. So our technology is able to capture the cells, analyze them, and actually give the caregiver, the doctor, the pathologist, whoever it is that's treating that particular subject, that patient, that there's either a fear for cancer or has already been diagnosed with cancer, and we can tell them what might be the specific cause for that cancer and therefore how you should treat it. So this is what our instrumentation is capable of doing, and it is a very, very advanced technology. It needs to be able to sometimes, we'll talk about this maybe a little later, scan thousands of cells and identify even very few rare cells, which are those cancerous cells that we are looking for.
Interesting. Now, I mean, this might seem like an obvious question, but what inspired you to create this product line?
Well, actually, when the company started up, it was really in a little bit of a different direction. It was actually trying to solve a different problem that is out there, or a different health issue. And that was actually to look for fetal cells and to be able to diagnose any genetic abnormalities in a fetus before the woman gives birth to that fetus, if she so decides to have an abortion or not, under those type of circumstances. And this is what this technology was originally developed for a lot of different reasons, which I really don't know all of them, because before I joined the company, they moved off from that, and then we began to concentrate on cancer. The reason any company, I think, wants to deal with cancer is besides the obvious commercial opportunities that are there, and there are a lot of commercial opportunities. I think as somebody that I've been involved in the medical device industry and dealing with biotech types of companies for more than 30 years here in Israel, it gives you a certain feeling of that you're doing something besides the commercial side. You really feel that you're actually maybe going to help somebody, either by discovering the disease earlier, or if you didn't discover it, but at least you'll figure out exactly what's going on and give somebody the direction towards treating it. So anything to do with diagnosing cancer, and that is what Bioview is in, has a very, very good commercial possibility, but it also, I think, brings forward to people a very good feeling to work. Our workers at Bioview, our employees of Bioview are all very highly motivated because they feel that they are really contributing beyond to the company from the commercial point of view, also for helping people.
Absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine what, how wonderful it is to be able to actually apply something to a disease that is so deadly and affecting so many people around the world. Now, you've developed this product that helps diagnose the disease, but what is a process that a person goes through when using that product?
Okay, so we don't, of course, have people who are actually ill using the product.
Right.
Our product are sold to laboratories and to different research laboratories and clinical laboratories where the samples are taken from the subjects. As I mentioned before, the sample might be blood sample, it might be a urine sample, it could be a tissue sample that was taken via biopsy, and then it makes it to the laboratory. In the laboratory, they prepare the sample in a certain way with these specific biomarkers, which really are not developed by Bioview, but we work with one of the leading companies in the world, the leading company in the world, who develops biomarkers, Abbott Molecular, which is a division part of Abbott, great Abbott Laboratories, the large Abbott Laboratories. And we are then able to take that slide, which has the cells on it, marked with these specific biomarkers, and scan and allow the customer, the physician, the laboratory, to prepare a report which will go back and say, therefore, you should treat the patient in this particular manner.
So, let's say I go into the doctor. Can I request having this process done so I can see what I'm predisposed to, or is it something that a doctor chooses to do based on symptoms you may be?
It's usually the doctor will choose to do these types of tests. In other words, depending on the particular thing, we really can break out Bioview's particular applications into three areas. You mentioned at the very beginning about the lung cancer, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There's two other areas which are very important in the use of Bioview instrumentation. One area is what's called the area of companion diagnostics, meaning that we need to do a specific test on a patient in order to prescribe for that patient a particular drug. The best example of that is well known today, that women who have breast cancer, metastatic breast cancer, and have overexpression of a particular gene, the HER2/neu gene, will actually be treatable with a drug which is called Herceptin. So we need a diagnostic, and we have a companion drug which tells us which people to treat. This test can be done very, very well, very efficiently on the Bioview instrumentation.
What is the time process, though? Once the physician sends, your urine or whatever it is into the lab to be tested, when can you find out what you're predisposed to?
So actually, that is one of the big advantages of the Bioview instrumentation. The fact that our instrumentation is automated and we can load up 50 slides, 100 slides, 200 slides, and the system continuously scans the cases means that the instrument can work 24 hours a day, if necessary 7 days a week, and cut back significantly on the turnaround time for when the physician will be able to get the result. In the olden days, 10 years ago, before there was this type of instrumentation, it could take as long as 7 to 14 to 20 days to get back the result of that particular test. Today, because of instruments like Bioview, the results will be normally found, turnaround time, on the order of 2 to 3 days. Now, it's not life-threatening, the difference in the time, but obviously the patient who's waiting for that information is in very, very apprehensive state, waiting for the answers. And if you're able to get those answers to them in a much shorter time period, you've already done something very good for that patient.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to be able to have such a quick turnover time,
Right.
you can save somebody's life. Now, let's turn to liquid biopsy.
Okay.
Explain to us what this is.
All right, so let me just backtrack for a moment and talk what is a biopsy, first of all.
Right.
Okay, a biopsy, as I guess most of us know, is when there is some reason where we want to take a particular tissue from a person and send it to the laboratory for analysis. The reason we're looking at that tissue, again, in the area of cancer, there are solid tumors, what are called lung cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer. These are all cancers that are in tissue, are in the solid tumors. And you send the tissue sample to the laboratory, you do whatever analyses that you do, some of them on the Bioview machine, some of them on other things, and you decide whether that person needs to be treated in a certain manner or not. As that person begins to be treated, you want to know if the treatment you are giving them is effective or not. After all, the old statement used to say sometimes, you know, chemotherapy is worse than the disease. If you just give a lot of chemotherapy to the subject, to the patient, that can kill them more than the actual cancer.
Right.
Because chemotherapy very often used to be very broad-based. So
Yeah.
how can we find out quickly and efficiently, in real time almost, whether this patient is being helped? Is the patient, the treatment we are giving this patient, the right treatment? Do we have to change the treatment plan or not? We can go back every 2 weeks and take a biopsy, but that's not a good idea. So instead, we have developed, together with many leading groups, the possibility of doing biopsy on blood, liquid biopsy. You take
There
a
you go.
liquid from the person, and being that solid tumors metastasize and send cells out
bloodstream.
into the peripheral blood system, very few cells. You might take a sample of blood, you might analyze 100,000 cells or more, and you may only find 5 or 10 tumor cells. But you are then able to monitor whether the treatment you are doing is helping that subject or not. Did the number of cells drop down, become less, or did they increase? If they're increasing, there's no point to continue giving them that particular type of drug. Another example, pharma companies, when they are developing new pharmaceuticals, they also need to know quickly whether it is working. You can't take biopsies from people every 24 hours. You can't do that type of invasive procedure. Liquid biopsy actually allows you to take the blood, look for those few rare cells. It is truly the proverbial needle in the haystack that we're looking for here. And using the Bioview instrument coupled with other technologies, we are able to enumerate those cells and actually monitor the treatment and do what we call now personalized medicine. Make sure we are giving the right medicine for that subject exactly as he needs it.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. It sounds like you guys have created a life-changing product, and I'm excited to see what the future is.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to meeting you again. Have a very good evening.
Everyone knows Israel brought home 2 bronze medals from the Olympics, but it looks like Israelis have a lot more to celebrate. Get your computers ready for one of the best musical and visual experiences on earth, because Israel has just scored an MTV Music Video Award.
Underneath the storm, an umbrella saying, sitting with the boys and takes away the pain. Up and up, up and up. Saying, we gon' get together right now. We're gonna get together somehow. We're gonna get together.
Yes, that's right. 2 Israeli directors won for having created the best visual effects in a video at this week's awards ceremony in New York. Vanya Heyman and Gal Mugia were recognized by one of the music industry's giants for their outstanding work in the song Up and Up, performed by the British rock band Coldplay. The pair was also nominated for Best Direction, but lost out to the creative forces behind Beyoncé's Formation video. The Israeli stunning production features brilliant surreal imagery of the ordinary appearing amid unnatural landscapes, from a digitally altered and whimsical perspective. Just ahead of the song's release in May, Coldplay frontman Chris Martin raved about the beautiful 4-minute montage, calling it one of the best videos ever made, even if the sound was muted. Let's take a quick look for ourselves. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. They say the best things happen unexpectedly, so today's word is hafta'ah, which means surprise in Hebrew. Surprises can happen in lots of special ways. Just yesterday, the Israeli Olympic medalist Yarden Jarbi did a special hafta'ah for the children's ward of an Israeli hospital after receiving a surprise herself. An anonymous person donated over $50,000 to the medalist in exchange for her name tag from the Olympics, so that she could in turn give the funds to children with pediatric cancer. All the donor requested was for Jarbi to surprise the kids with tons of gifts in honor of the donation. Jarbi certainly gave the kids the hafta'ah of a lifetime, because there's nothing like being surprised by a true hero. It's an awesome feeling when someone is making an effort to make you smile, and hafta'ot, or surprises, are even more beautiful because they come without waiting. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Wednesday is expected to be partly cloudy with a high of 85 degrees. The clouds should stay out through Thursday, but the temperature will drop down to 84. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.78 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our next update at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.